Hello, everyone. My name is Neel Dani, and it's my pleasure to be hosting Artists Empowering Artists presented to you by Youth for Change. And for those of you who are not aware of the foundation, Youth for Change is a nonprofit organization committed to helping youth in whatever way they can. And right now, we are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, and one of the things that Youth for Change really wanted to do was help artists during this time artists, musicians, performers, and creatives. And so this program is doing exactly that. Let's say you're an artist or someone who's passionate about music and you don't know where to begin, and this is the place for you. Let's say you're someone who has some experience but wants to learn more, especially about how to keep up in a time where everything is virtual. This is for you as well. So I'm really fortunate today to have some awesome guests on the program. First, we have our youth guest, rocking the beats. We have Aditya, and he's a grade 9 student in the IB program at Maple High School. Very smart guy. And he's also a very talented and dedicated music student. He's learning piano, he's learning guitar, he does some EDM stuff on the Launchpad, and recently has even gotten into music production. So let's have a warm welcome for Aditya. How's it
Thanks.
going? Long
Good.
time no see.
Yeah.
Aditya is actually one of my students and one of the students of our guest speaker for today, who we're really fortunate to have on the program, the one and only Nick Vasiliou. He is keyboard player extraordinaire, jazz, I don't know what the word, enthusiast. There we go. Jazz enthusiast, keyboard player extraordinaire, and he's a student at York University in the jazz program, which I'll let him speak a little bit more about. And he is an awesome music teacher and actually teaches here at Chorus as well. So welcome to the program, Nick.
Thank you so much, Neel. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. And yeah, Aditya, welcome to you as well.
Thanks.
So today is about musicians and performers. And we had a few things that we wanted to discuss. But before we do, I thought it might be nice to just hear a little bit from our guests and get some insight on what they're all about. So let's start with Aditya. What's your story, Aditya? How long have you been playing music for? What got you into music?
Alright, so one day I was like walking down the street with my parents and they're like, okay, I want you to learn an instrument. So I was like,
Okay.
alright, sure. It all kind of started from there. I mean, I've always had an interest for music because it's fun, like really fun to play, in my opinion. So like when they said I should join, I was like, yeah, sure, for sure. And then
Cool.
that kind of happened like 5-ish years ago.
Nice. And what instrument did you start with?
I started with the piano because I wanted to build a strong bass. Then I moved to guitar, then Launchpad, then everything else happened after that.
And everything else happened after that. So this is a little bit along the lines of what I was mentioning last week for those of you who tuned into that podcast. Basically, for our guests, last week was just me ranting for like 50 minutes about a bunch of different things. But one of them was, if you're starting out, pick a focus in the beginning, because all of the things may seem very tempting. Like myself personally, I like drums, guitar, bass, percussion. But if I tried doing all that at the same time and didn't really have a focus, I may have spread myself thin. So one thing that I really like about Aditya's journey is he started with piano, right? He picked the focus, and in his words, he said he wanted the biggest or the best foundation, which in a lot of cases piano gives you. So he did that, kind of built his skills on that, and then as he got that, he kept that going, and he also added guitar, added Launchpad, production. But one of the things that takes is dedication and commitment. Because now you got more things to practice, more things to focus on. So just because something starts feeling, new and exciting, doesn't mean that you want to let all the work that you put into other areas drop. So dedication and consistency is key, which Aditya has been doing. And what would you say is, like, do you have any goals with music? Do you see yourself doing it like when you're older, more just like for fun as a hobby, or do you see yourself like what kind of goals do you have with music?
Alright, so probably my biggest goal in music is to like hear a song at a party and just straight up play it instantly, like without a second thinking,
Nice.
which
So,
I've been actually doing with Nick now.
yeah, I was gonna say. So basically, you want to be Nick.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, Nick. Let's talk to you a little bit, Nick. So, what
Sure.
is your story with music and your journey? And I know you're really passionate about it, but maybe you can just talk a little bit about um, what you're passionate about and how you got started
Yeah.
with this and where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I think like a lot of other people who are into music, for me it started off the same way, right? As a kid, my parents decided to enroll me in music lessons, right? And I think that music lessons are a pivotal moment for a lot of people, right? Because before that, you can only grasp so much music theory and practical musical skills. But once when you start with the lessons, that's when you sort of begin to realize whether this is a passion of yours, right? Whether you're a hobbyist, right, and all that. Needless to say, it was quite a passion for me, even when I was enrolled in piano lessons quite young. 5 or 6 is when I started. And I continued on throughout my childhood and through my teenage years. And I think from there, the big breakthrough for me was moving a little bit away from the classical repertoire and the repertoire of the Royal Conservatory. That was sort of something that was a big moment for me, going out and playing the music that I was listening to and that I was enjoying, which for me ended up being jazz, funk, soul, R&B, that sort of territory, which is big on using your ears, having a larger understanding of the broader repertoire that's important for jazz. And so, once when I fell into this love of these styles, that's when I found that my commitment to the music really took off. In high school, I remember days in the summertime, when school was out, of going to a friend's house and practicing and playing tunes from 9 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, right? We would just play all day, right? Because we were so committed and we loved it and we cared about the music so much. So that's when I sort of started taking off. And it was around that time as well when I started getting a little bit more work, playing gigs, doing some recordings, even doing talks and discussions for, I remember doing podcasts for people as well who were fellow jazz enthusiasts. So that's about when the work started. And then, of course, I continued on that trajectory in university, where I took on the jazz program at York. So I'm currently in my 4th year of my undergrad there. And, over the last 3-4 years at York, I've also had the opportunity to expand my network of musicians and, of course, improve my abilities and my chops, my playing chops. So now I'm sort of at a point in my career where I have a little bit of a network around me, and I sort of, as Aditya was alluding to with regards to his playing, I've sort of created a little bit of a foundation for myself, which now I'm hoping to expand on in the future. So that's a little bit about me. I'm quite an eclectic musician, I would say. I love jazz, and jazz is probably my roots. But I don't shy away from pop, musical theater, soul, funk, even classical music. I don't have great classical chops, but I definitely have a passion for that music as well. So I try to keep it diverse.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah, you know what? The great thing about keeping it diverse is you can learn so much from different styles, right? And so having a more broad understanding just kind of helps piece everything together. I think even mentally, whether you're not going to focus on that style, just gives you a more just a much broader understanding, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other interesting thing when you study different types of music is you start to find the common links, right? Obviously there are the more obvious relationships, right? Like hip hop is very closely related to soul, which is closely related to jazz, right? That's a little bit more of an obvious lineage. But then there are maybe some other connections that aren't as obvious, right? If you're familiar with jazz, in the 60s, late 50s and 60s, a lot of American jazz musicians had interests in Indian classical music. So there are lots of great recordings that really have that influence. So, if you have the knowledge of all of the styles, you start to see the patterns and the relationships, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the really nice thing about that as well is then you can really have that fusion element where,
Yeah.
that's what it was, right? When they, like
Yeah.
John McLaughlin.
Sure. Yeah.
Shut
Coltrane before him as well, right?
Coltrane. And it's really cool to see. I mean, then it leaks more into pop too, like with the Beatles. So all this fusion, you can get so much and gain so much. And this is what, like the festivals we do here at Youth for Change and also at another organization, Moksha Canada, we have a festival called the Diversity Festival. And basically the idea is by going outside your box, you can learn so much more that is only going to bring that much more richness to what you're actually doing, and just have you more well-informed too. So definitely very cool. And I mean, Nick plays a bunch of stuff. He's a lot of fun to play with. It's great. He's great if you're a singer because then you just want him to play with you all the time, And the cool thing I hear about your stuff is no matter what you play, you still have that. You bring that jazzy vibe into everything you do, which is really cool.
Yeah,
for sure. Everyone likes a jazz vibe.
Everyone likes a jazz vibe, especially when it's from Nick.
And the thing is, I actually find that. Obviously, I can't speak to students from 20, 30 years ago, but definitely nowadays, I'm always interested when younger students who play piano or play guitar, they really value and they enjoy this jazz sound, right? And I think that's because of the relationship between jazz and hip-hop, right? And they hear some of these sounds in hip-hop, and R&B, right? So they're hearing some of these sounds, and they're not 100%. Maybe there isn't the understanding, the theoretical understanding of what exactly is going on, but they hear them, they like them. So then when they hear it in a jazz context, they also like it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's interesting when how this jazz sound is like to be desired, right? I find it very interesting. That's my theory behind it. I don't know if you guys agree, but.
Yeah, you know what? For me, I feel like jazz or classical, depending on which way you do it. But now in this day and age, it's like being from North America and having a British accent. You just sound so much more like, polished. Like when you add, because there's so much more color, with the harmony in jazz, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think a lot of people, when they're listening to these hip hop records, it was sampled jazz records, right? So you hear all this harmony that you don't get from just a major or a minor chord. So people listen to that, they get their ears wrapped around that, and they're like, oh, what is this? How do I get that? So then they end up going back to jazz, and I think even just seeing how things are linked, like for example EDM, you can kind of draw a line between EDM and jazz, because the way that jazz or the way that hip hop started was actually with DJs who were sampling jazz. DJing wasn't an EDM thing. There was no EDM at that time. There was just DJs making hip hop by sampling jazz. And now the main way that people, perform EDM is as a DJ. So like just seeing how even different types of technology go from one style and then become like a standard in another style. But without jazz, nobody would have been sampling jazz records and using them on turntables, which now went to the whole EDM scene, which kind of now went back to rap, where they're not sampling jazz, but sometimes they still are. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
Just to see that relationship. So basically the point of that would be for everybody watching is try to go outside your norm. Try to explore, because even for myself, I was at York too for music, and I went to York with a classical guitar performance major. And then as soon as I got there, I realized how much I didn't know about anything else. So all I was trying to do at York was learn everything I could, African music, South Indian music, Latin American music. And then I ended up doing my major in world music performance as well, along with classical guitar. But if I didn't diversify and I just kind of stuck to what I knew, then I would have lost so much knowledge that I've gained. So um, diversify. It's always good to learn new things, even within the area you're studying. Don't box yourself in too quickly. Um, as a student, maybe as an artist, you have to worry about different things. You have to worry about your sound, your style, what people are coming to listen to you for. So there you may want to be a little bit more narrow. But when you're learning, open your ears and your eyes and your mind to everything, and you're only going to gain from it. So moving on here, we're talking today about honing your skills, which I think is something that we did briefly mention. Going to school, um, going to lessons, getting trained. All of that is really going to help you develop as a musician or a performer. But let's also talk about how performance is happening these days. It's happening virtually because we're all not going to physical gatherings. We're not playing in public, and it doesn't seem like that's going to happen for a little while. So, um, what are your thoughts on that, Aditya? Because I know
Mm.
you've been doing lessons on Zoom for a little while now, right? Probably since
Yeah,
March.
yeah. Like when I heard like one of my friends, he goes like that goes to Maple. He's like an online band, and I kind of laughed at that because like an online band's like second later delay. It's gonna be almost next to impossible to play. But he said it's working
Yeah,
out, so it's
like a
interesting to see how
full
far.
concert band.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that was interesting to see how they like actually did it.
That's yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you know what? We were actually going to talk a little bit today about how to get the most out of Zoom as well, and that's something that will segue into that because an online band I find really tough. What are your
Hard.
thoughts on that, Nick?
Well, so part of my university studies includes ensemble courses. So I'm currently in two ensembles. And unfortunately, we haven't done any live playing together over the last few months. Just because while Zoom does have some ways to be optimized and improved, in terms of multiple people playing together, it's just not quite there yet. Um, and we've even experimented with some jam programs. Jam Kazam, I think, is one of them, where the idea behind it is everybody downloads the platform, and there's a click track, and everybody plays along, and then you can play it all back and hear
Oh,
it as a group, right? So there are some softwares floating around like that. We haven't used that all that much, and I'm okay with it. I think with regards to how we're sort of managing with the pandemic as musicians, I'm using it as an opportunity to look at some other skills that perhaps I usually kind of have on the back burner, right? Like one thing that I really sort of worked on when the pandemic started was my familiarity with Pro Tools, right? Or which is a recording software, a DAW, a digital audio workstation. Um, so I honed my skills with Pro Tools a little bit, which has been helpful because throughout the pandemic, if you want to play with other people, you record on your end at home and you send it out and somebody compiles it in their DAW, right? So working on different skills like that has been sort of how I'm salvaging my free time.
mhm. That's a really good point. So, jamming on Zoom, and that's actually why I'm
Mhm.
really happy that we have the two of you here in this discussion. Because I know Nick, you were mentioning there was one class I think you're taking where because you have optimized your connection and your professor has optimized their connection, you can almost jam for
Yeah.
real, right?
Yeah, this is with my private instructor. I too have a one-on-one lesson with a teacher, right? Because you're always a student, no matter what, right?
That's
So
okay, guys. Just everybody listening. That's a gem right there. That's a gem that you
I
don't
can't
ever.
take credit for that, right? I think that's a good adage that gets thrown around every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Especially in music, you're always a student,
Student.
even if you
Yeah.
talk to like fantastic musicians who are in their 70s and 80s. They will tell you that they are still students. So I think that's a good thing to aspire to be like.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome, and that's you know what the best approach to have because the when you really know, and I think this is another one of those things that's been thrown around, but when you really start to gain an understanding of something, that's when you actually realize how little you know about that thing,
Sure. Yeah.
right? When you if you think, "Oh my god, I know everything." Then you probably haven't dived deep enough into it. And as soon as you start diving a little deeper, then there's a whole nother world. And then you dive a little bit
Yeah.
deeper and there's a whole nother world. And for example, Aditya got into modes last
Oh
week.
yeah.
So he
Modes.
knows his modes now.
I
And
think so.
you know
Probably.
that's another kind of area you dive in. You think, oh, I know scales, I know major scales, I know minor scales, I know harmonic, melodic. Then there's a whole nother world, and so that keeps on happening no matter what. I was at York for 7 years, and I left there, and I was like, man, I need to be there for another 7 years at least. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I
but
know what you mean. Yeah.
the great thing is that you can gain knowledge everywhere as long as your mind is open to it. So, yeah, just
Good
you're always a
mindset.
student, you're always learning, and there's always more to be learned. So
And
let's
just
talk a little
oh,
bit. Sorry, go ahead,
sorry,
Nick.
Neil, if you don't mind, just
Yep,
to tie it back into the idea of the pandemic, right? Like,
sure.
I like what you're saying, Neil, about keeping your mind open, right? Because we're in a global crisis right now, and it's difficult, to deal with on a personal level and emotionally. But if we sort of keep a little bit of an open mind and we try to find any sort of solace in whether that's in playing music or any sort of study,
Hmm.
just keeping that open mind will kind of help you get through it, right? So
For
hopefully
sure.
for some people the pandemic is an opportunity to kind of focus in on the things that make you happy, right? And spend a little bit of time doing that, since the other responsibilities of daily life are sort of pushed to the side for a bit, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I
For
remember the last
sure.
time I actually did something useful, actually did extra homework. Never done that.
Okay. But
Right?
hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully, Aditya, with your free time these days, right? Like, I know you're doing multiple lessons a week, right? Hopefully, you're spending a little bit of time. You're spending some time practicing too, because maybe you have the time, right? You have a little more
Yeah.
time, right? So.
I remember March 8th, okay, maybe March 8th, after April, I got guitar a lot more into guitar than ever
Mm.
before. Before I was kinda more into piano, but then guitar after the pandemic I started playing it more, started enjoying it more, and then kind of just had more of a passion with it, and
Hmm.
now I'd say I get made pretty quick progress since ever before.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing, right? You need something that kind of pushes you to say, like, oh, I really love this and I want to do this because I like it. And that's when you get the most out of it. Like for me, I would say it was probably around your age, like grade nine-ish, when I joined my first band. And for me, like I was taking classical guitar lessons for years before that, but that's when I really got into it. And that's when I also realized that the skills that I'd gained over those last years of doing classical guitar helped me, um, just helped me do things and helped me feel confident about playing. Once you have that confidence and then you also have an interest, it's just going to skyrocket, your amount of progress. And so now Aditya has an electric guitar, he has a nice
Yeah.
amp, he has an acoustic, he's building his little his
This
gear,
small music studio,
a
small
little.
room over here.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. Because like when I was younger, this is going back now. I would say like 2008, 2009. But my room was a single mattress that I would put up against the wall. Like this, I'm not even kidding. I would put this single mattress up against the wall during the day, and it was just instruments everywhere. And I would
Cool.
just bring that mattress down to go to sleep at night, but then just push it back up so I could put like my amp there, and but the amp would just hold my bed mattress up on the wall like this. But I'd have people come over and we just jam like nonstop, to the point where the neighbors across the street, they're like, "Oh man, you guys are sick. Like, you guys are getting a lot better, because they could hear it too. There was a drum set in there, a guitar amp, a bass amp, mics, and that's when I really started loving it. So it's whatever pushes you in that direction um, is great, but sometimes it takes that diversifying to find that thing that you may connect with. Um, and also, let's just go um, back to the Zoom optimization. So one reason I'm really happy that both of you are here, I was mentioning before, is because Nick had mentioned that he almost had that jam experience online, and I've had that with only one person too, and that is actually Aditya. So
Good to know.
Aditya,
Good to
yeah,
know.
he would strum his chords. I don't know which of Monsters and Men song it was because that's all he
There's
plays on
so many.
guitar.
Yeah.
But he was strumming the chords, and if you do it with a good sense of time, I was basically kind of treating what I heard him doing as a metronome, right? So once I got his pulse, I was just playing my part, but he had to be very in time, and I had to be very in time for it to line up. And then there were pockets of time where it would line up. I
Yeah.
wasn't really listening to him, but it was like getting the pulse that he
Yeah.
had set and then following it, right? So that that's probably the most you can do on Zoom, comfortably. But what Nick had mentioned too is a really good point where uh, use a DAW, use a digital audio workstation. So if you have a Mac, you have GarageBand already built into your computer. If you have a PC, you don't, but I mean, even something like Ableton Live Lite can go for like $99. And then there's free software too. Like there's one called OBS Studio, where I think you can record and you can stream
Yeah.
from it and things like that as well. So DAWs are really good to get familiar with because more than jamming here, it almost works better for you to send your files out or be able to take someone's files and bring them into your system, and that really helps the audio quality and what you can do with it after. You can post it, you can publish it, you can make it sound higher quality than you can like this. But let's maybe go through and see a few things. So if you hadn't noticed, a lot of us are using mics today. I didn't use a mic last week, but this is just to show you some of the things that, there you go, see, you can use in different ways that you can use it. So Aditya is using his microphone right now. That's what his audio is coming from. So what kind of mic do you got there, Aditya?
It's a Blue Yeti. Pretty sure
Blue,
it's
Blue
yeah.
Yeti, and
Pretty
it's
sure,
the USB mic, right?
yeah. It's a USB mic.
Cool. So for those of you who don't know, looking at a mic, a USB mic just plugs in directly to your computer with a USB cable. The microphone that I'm using and the microphone that Nick is using, I'm assuming, runs through an interface, which you have to use like a normal microphone cable called an XLR cable. And then that runs into a little box that looks something like this thing. And it's connected into there, and it is then plugged in through a USB cable into the computer. So both of those options work. The interface will give you a little bit more in terms of options because then you can connect other instruments to it as well. But if you're only looking for a microphone that's very easy to use, then a USB mic works great as well. So one thing that we're all doing is using microphones, and the reason is because these microphones are going to give you higher quality than the built-in microphone in your computer, or depending on the webcam microphone, even a webcam microphone, because you're going to have that space between yourself and the mic. So Nick, what kind of mic are you using there?
This is just a Sennheiser. I've had it for a long time. Mostly I've used it for performance, right, for gigs and stuff. But it seems to work pretty okay through Zoom. I think for me, because I'm a keyboard player, the big power is having the interface, right? Zoom accommodates audio interfaces, right? So I'm sitting at a keyboard right now, and you can hear it there, right?
Sounds nice.
And that's very helpful because if I'm doing, I've done some songwriting sessions with singers, and I've even one way that I actually have managed over Zoom is if it's just a singer, right? Because provided that you have decent audio, and if you're accompanying a singer, you can play for them, and they can sing over top of you while they're muted, right? So if you're an instrumentalist, having that interface to plug into Zoom will be very helpful.
For sure, for sure. And so one that I would just recommend really quickly. What are you actually using, Nick?
I'm the one you're probably going to recommend, the Focusrite.
The
Scarlett,
right?
yeah.
So that is like the world's most popular interface because it works well, it's reliable, and it's not too expensive. It's a red metal casing interface. So if you type in audio interface, this is probably one of the first ones you'll see.
Yeah.
And there's different models. So there's one called the Solo, which lets you plug in, I think one mic and one guitar, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger to allow for more connections at the same time. So I would say check out a Focusrite audio interface if it's something you're looking for. Really good starter one, and you can get. I'm sure if you want to upgrade at some point, like you can get someone to buy that very quickly. I wouldn't even get rid of it. I actually have a Focusrite Scarlett as well that I just keep in a bag. So if I need to take something somewhere, this interface I'm using right now, which I love, you have to plug it in for it to work. With the Focusrite, it's what's called bus powered, so your computer charges it itself, which is really convenient for gigs and stuff. Or if you're going somewhere, or you're doing a Zoom call, and you may not necessarily be in your studio space with lots of outlets and lots of resources available. So audio interface and microphones are really important. But Nick, do you have any other tips for optimizing Zoom? I know we had spoken about this a little bit the other day, and one thing that you'd mentioned that completely slipped my mind too was actually the importance of a wired connection.
Yeah, absolutely right. The reality is that wireless internet Wi-Fi, it's just not constantly reliable, right? It has little blips, which I'm sure everybody knows. So just by plugging your device, your laptop or your computer, if you have an Ethernet port, or you can plug it right into your modem, that makes a big difference. The connection is far more stable, and if everybody in your Zoom call is using a wired connection, that's when you get fairly close to real time sound. So yeah, wired connection is definitely superior to wireless. Not that there's anything wrong with wireless if that's all you have access to, but
Yeah. I'm using wireless right now. Totally not using wireless right now.
I'm using wireless right now too, just because I don't have a cable connection close by. But that it's true that even like for myself at home, I connected my smart TV with a wired connection. Why? Because it's just going to run that much better. So if performance is something that you really, really need, or you'd really like to have and prioritize, then go for the wired connection. Obviously, you have Wi-Fi available to you as well, but depending on how many people are on using it and the strength that you have already or the speed that you have, there's a lot of factors that can get it to not be the way you'd want it to be. Whereas with a wired connection, you're kind of ensured that. The other thing that we wanted to talk about, is there any other points that you have or tips that you have? There's something that I'm sure viewers see that all of us are also using besides mics.
the cans,
the headphones, right? So
gotta use the
that
cans.
is very important. So why is that important, guys?
So like, I feel like if you're not wearing headphones, it's like I see my house is like fairly quiet compared to other people's, but like there's still lots of background noise that gets in. And, like even more with headphones, like you get like a better like exact sound, like maybe like better pitch, I'd say, or something. It's just something about it just makes it feel a lot cleaner.
Yeah, more clarity, right? So why is that, Nick? Like, why do we get more clarity when we use the headphones?
Well, I think the big thing is Well, first of all, your device speakers aren't as equipped to handle the different frequencies compared to a pair of decent headphones. Even the earbuds are actually okay on Zoom, I find. But as well, if you're using a microphone, or if your device is doubling as a microphone and a speaker, it has to cut audio when you're talking, right? So you get some weird little effects when you're not using a mic.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. So I'm sure, for our viewers, sometimes when something is being streamed, you might have those little moments of lag too. But overall, this call's running really smooth
Yeah.
because there's no extra noise. If I don't plug in these headphones, now my sound is going to be coming out of the same speaker that I'm speaking into. So when I start
Right.
speaking, it's also bringing audio back out, and now you're just
Got
messing
that
up this
echo.
whole, yeah, you're just messing up the whole process. So by
I'm
using
sure people have
headphones,
tried this, like putting like two FaceTime calls on the same time, like right beside each other. I'm sure people have definitely tried this once before.
oh yeah, yeah, and then it's just a mess, right? And that's the problem is now, I'm trying to speak into the computer, but at the same time, I'm trying to listen from that same source. So now, when I'm talking, that's going to be heard in the playback, even though I'm not finished necessarily saying what I'm going to say. So with headphones, you don't run into any of those issues. So headphones are a huge one. Microphone is a really great one. Wired connection. And then the last one would be the audio settings in Zoom itself. So Nick, maybe you can speak a little bit about that, what you found with that.
Yeah, I mean there are a couple settings in Zoom in particular that optimize audio, and I'm sure a quick Google search can tell you this, but just off of what I'm looking at here. So under the audio settings, if you there's a little blurb for suppress background noise, and I think the default has that on auto. But if you set that to low, you'll get a little bit of a clearer audio. And then when you go into the advanced settings, I don't know if everybody has this option because I know there are different updates of Zoom kind of floating around. But in the advanced audio settings, I have an option to show in-meeting option to enable original sound, which is a good thing to do. If you activate that, then you can even activate a couple other things like high-fidelity music mode and settings like that. Like I said, I'm sure that's a pretty
Yeah.
common known thing, especially if you Google it, how to get quality music audio on Zoom. You can probably find those little suggestions.
Yeah, so I mean, it's worth the Google search. It'll take a couple minutes, but just for those of you who are tuning in, if you are curious and you don't know, this is all accessed through. There's that little microphone icon on the left bottom corner, which is your audio. That's where your audio is coming from. So if you click the arrow to the right of it and you go to audio settings, then that's where all this stuff that Nick is mentioning is in. Some of it is just all right there, and some you may have to click a little advanced tab on the bottom to access. But that's where you want to go to fiddle with these audio settings and just optimize them for Zoom. So try that out if you haven't already. I think you're going to notice a huge difference on the overall quality of your Zoom meetings, whatever you have them for, but especially for music. Speaking of music, we actually have two awesome musicians here in the house, so maybe we can hear how this sounds over Zoom. And we actually have Aditya is going to be playing some guitar for us, and then Nick is going to amaze us with some piano. So
Can't wait for the piano.
but yeah, no, me neither. Well, I'm excited for this guitar stuff too. So what are you going to be playing for us, Aditya? And just so the viewers know, so Aditya is connected to his microphone, and this is meant to just give you a little bit of an idea on the difference where if you are going to use a microphone versus an interface, and let's say you're playing an acoustic guitar, this is kind of what you can expect from that. It's not running through the system, but it's still being picked up by an external microphone as opposed to the microphone that's in your actual computer or device. And before we go to this, just one more thing I did want to mention about Zoom optimization, Nick, because you had raised this as a really good point, is you can use another device like a phone or an iPad, but really, if you use a laptop, you're going to get more performance out of the Zoom session as well, um, because there's just um, more, I guess, processing power in the computer. So it's a good route to go. But here we have Aditya all ready to go. So what are you going to be
Yes.
performing for us?
Uh, song called Little Talks by Monster and Men. So, yeah, I guess that's all there is really to it. Probably the only
Cool.
band I actually ever play on guitar and piano and like pretty much everything.
Yeah, this is like
But
Aditya's favorite band because he pretty much plays exclusively, I would say, right now, of
yeah,
Monsters and Men, and then with a little bit of Vance Joy in there as well.
yes, recently gone to Guns N' Roses, so that's neat. Sweet child of mine.
Nice, nice. Okay, that's
Yes. So I'm
good to
expanding
know.
now. I'm expanding.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, you're doing Little Talks by of Monsters and Men, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So if anybody really wants to hear this again, there's the song. Aditya, take it away whenever you're ready.
Ta-da.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff, man. That was really nice.
Thanks.
So that was finger style. That was some
Yeah.
finger style that Aditya had done there. But one of the really cool things is he was knocking on the guitar as well, and that
Took me a
takes
while
some
to learn that.
coordination. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
that takes some coordination to definitely take some practice. But for those of you who do play acoustic, that's an extra skill that you can add to your arsenal, like Aditya did, and it's really cool because now all of a sudden you have a bass drum out of nowhere. So
Exactly.
um, nicely done, man. Good stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was very cool. So
Yeah.
that is a guitar going through that microphone, and
Yeah.
I'm sure if you compare it to just going through the normal microphone.
And I probably could have done much better, like put the microphone a little bit closer. Actually, like
No,
fine
no,
tune the settings, but like
but that's
still pretty
okay. No,
good.
this is
Yeah.
really good because it's not everyone is gonna do that. Some people it's gonna be more casual. You might be, using Zoom just to show someone an idea. In that case, that's perfect. We were able to hear clearly what you're doing, and that's good. So it's for different cases. There's different things that you may do, right? So we're trying to show you here all the different options that you can use. So now you have a microphone with an instrument going through the mic, whereas you also have the interface route, like Nick. So Nick, maybe we can. I'm gonna actually just spotlight the video on you. There we go. And now Nick is a awesome keyboard player, and I always love hearing him play. So I'm excited to have all of you watching, listen as well. What are you going to be playing for us, Nick?
Um, why don't we just kind of see what happens? We'll just improvise a little bit and see where we go.
I had a feeling. I
That's
had a
my
feeling
goal.
that.
That's my goal. That's what I want to get it to.
So,
There you go. Yeah. So that's the great thing with sometimes as people who are learning music or becoming performers, you might think, oh, okay, I'm going to have this song, you know, ready to play. Or if someone asks you to play something, you go through that, oh, what am I going to play? What song am I going to play? But a great place to get to is where Nick is basically, where he doesn't know what he's going to play, but it's going to sound good. So that's a really good place to be. And so, that's where honing your skills and building your skill set comes in, because then you are just empowered to not necessarily have one song or two songs that you latch onto and always play, but you can kind of just play. So yeah, let's go for it, Nick.
Okay, yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
Something like that.
Oh man,
Let's go.
yeah, dude.
A little
I
bit
was
funk in F major.
funk in F major, and
Yeah.
you know what? I really like that you played what you played, and I mean, I loved it. It was awesome. I miss, so two things I miss is listening to Nick and jamming with Nick. These are two
Oh,
things
that's
right now. These are
Oh, I
like
know.
two of my, my list of like pandemic regrets: listening to Nick and not listening to Nick, and not jamming with Nick. Yeah, I miss because it's fun. Like, and you make that. That's the Nord, right? That you're using there.
That is the Nord, yes.
Yeah, sounds really good. Great
Yeah.
keyboard for any of those who are interested.
Very rich sound.
So if you like that, that was the Nord, and that was Nick, and that was really cool. There was a few passages there that I heard that, if you really wanted, you can turn those into hip hop loops. So
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah, for sure.
And so
Good drum and you're good.
yeah, it's really good stuff, and hopefully for our viewers that gave you an idea of, you don't necessarily need a song, because music is so much more than just a song. It's having that understanding of how, notes and rhythm, or pitch and rhythm, can fit together to create so many different things. So that was an awesome performance from both of you guys. So thanks so much for doing that, and
No
I'm
problem.
sure our audience will get some insight, on on what they want to do. If you want to go the interface route, if you want to go the microphone route, um, or the USB mic route, they both give you different options to do a variety of things. And this is one of them where you can play for each other. Let's say you might not necessarily jam, but one thing that I really loved is, like your musician friends. That's what really got me to. You get in this little community of musicians, and then you kind of help each other, and that's what this talk was actually meant for as well, where you can all help bring each other up by inspiring each other, learning from each other, listening to each other. And so while we might not be able to jam the way that I would like to jam, with Nick basically right now, or even with Aditya, because we haven't jammed either. Like a lot of times when we're doing lessons, I love to just play right with
Exactly.
you guys, and
Yeah.
I'm sure Nick does too. But it's hard now, especially with online lessons. But that is something that we can still do, is share our music, play for each other. And if we do it in a way like this, you can join up with your friends or musician community on Zoom, and everybody can almost like a hot potato, but for music. You just pass it from one person to the other. Everybody can play for each other, and everybody can learn while they're still at home and grow while they're still at home. So we're almost done with the discussion today, but Aditya, do you have any questions for Nick? Or Nick, do you have anything that you'd want to say, or does anybody have anything that they'd like to end off on?
So like I think like one like good note about music, like my dad taught me this like probably like about a month ago. Music isn't like just about learning music. It's like kind of like it gives you more life skills, like playing a hard song. Like Slash like an amazing guitarist. I can like never get nowhere near him right now, but like I still want to play I still want to play his songs, and like just like that
Yeah.
determination, persistence.
You still want
And,
to
like,
play that Sweet Child
yeah.
of Mine intro and solo regardless,
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
that-
I can.
That's
I
awesome.
just
Yeah,
need, like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, did you actually start learning it?
Yeah, I did. I can try to play on acoustic. I can't guarantee it'll sound any good.
Sure. Let's see. Yeah, it might be hard on the acoustic because you can't
Yeah.
go up far enough, but yeah. That bass part in the beginning is so good too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that song. That
Yeah.
solo is amazing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff that really got me into it when I was a teenager. It was like rock music, band.
Yeah, I'm kind of shifting into the rock phase now, getting a little bit away from indie, going more into rock.
Yeah, the rock. Once you get an electric and you have distortion available, it's kind of hard as a guitar player to not go
Not exactly.
into that realm for a little, But that's a very good point. Yeah, music helps you build so many different skills. I actually started at York in political science because I thought I was going to do law, and I ended up switching to music. And one of the reasons I even did my undergrad in music is they mentioned to me at York that more music students get into the Osgood Law School program than political science students, because music teaches you how to think a certain way. It teaches you how to approach problems a certain way, break down those problems. If you have a really big piece you're working on, what's the first thing we usually do? Do it in small sections, right? You get really good at one little bit, then put that together with the other bit. And so you learn how to break down problems and turn them into solutions, because that's what you have to do when you're working on a hard piece or working on a tough arrangement or working on something that's just really technical that maybe your skill level is not quite there yet. So music does a lot in terms of helping you solve different life skills and finding solutions for things. Anything you'd want to mention on that, Nick, or on anything else?
Yeah, I mean, kind of as we've been talking about how the pandemic has closed off some avenues, right? When you have all those skills, when you're open to learning some new skills, then you can use the pandemic as an opportunity to continue to grow. So for us musicians, right, sure, we can't really play together live right now, but we should be thinking about the other skills that we require to have a career in music, right? Even things like, sort of on a bit of a separate note, I know we got to wrap up shortly, but one thing that I've been working on throughout the last 6 months is improving my updating my resume and my CV, my EPK for a couple of my projects, my social media presence. So, there are always skills for musicians to work on, things you need to do to sort of take your career to that next level. And the pandemic has it's taken some responsibility off our shoulders so that we have a little bit of time to think about some of those things that maybe we've been putting on the back burner for a while.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And so make the most of this time that you have, even though it's not necessarily, on the best of occasions or reasons to be at home. The fact is that you are at home, you're spending more time at home, so try to make the most of it by doing something productive. And you can improve on your craft, you can grow as a musician, or for example, like Nick mentioned, putting together an EPK, an electronic press kit, so then you have something that you could just send out to people. All these things as an artist is very important. Having content that you have all packaged together, ready to go to send out to someone, super important. If you're, thinking of starting to release original material, or have your songs on Spotify and iTunes, then there's a whole another thing that you have to learn about. And these are all, kind of Google rabbit holes that you should probably take in the beginning to familiarize yourself. It's difficult to say it all in even an hour, just because there's so much, especially when you get into intellectual property and copywriting and mechanical like there's so many different things that you can actually focus on in this industry that it's never ending. So along with your craft, you have, how do people see me? How do I present myself in public? How do I get out there more? How do I put my songs on Spotify? What's the way of getting things happening on YouTube? So there's so many different things that you can learn about, even virtually. All those things you can do virtually. I can put a song on Spotify from right here. I can put up a video from right here, and the whole world can see it. So even though we're at this point where we're not doing things live, this generation has the advantage and the resources to still get themselves out there. Whereas 20 years ago we couldn't have done this. Even 10 years ago this would have been kind of tough. So use this time to your advantage, because this time's not coming back, but we are stuck in this situation as is for now. So make the most of it, grow your skills, and develop your craft and your artistry. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I think that wraps up for today. Aditya, anything else you'd like to say?
Probably the last thing I say is don't use the pandemic as an excuse. That's like a really big thing I'd say, because a lot of kids in my class, they just hide behind the pandemic, even though they can easily do something, get up right now and do something else.
Okay, that's a very good point,
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah. So don't use the pandemic as an excuse. Use it as a platform to help you get further in whatever you want to do. Nick, how about yourself? Any final tip that you can give our viewers?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a musician, practice as much as you can, right? That's always a good thing to do if you're playing and you're hoping to improve your chops.
Yeah.
If you're not a musician, right, and you're interested in getting started, right, take up lessons. Lots of online options right now, and then anybody can. You should be listening to music. I think you should listen to new music every day, right? There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to find something new to listen to every day if you want to, of course. And can I plug myself? Can I do that as well?
Sure.
People can follow me on Instagram. If you look up my name. I actually just I played on an album with a bass player named Robert Burry, and he released the album a couple of weeks ago. So It's on Bandcamp, and there's a link on my Instagram for people if they want to check it out and purchase it and contribute a little bit to the purchase of it. Yeah,
look at that.
sweet.
He already pulled it up. See that? So,
I think I might have removed the link. I'll have to put it back, but I'll do that.
well, check out. Look, you see his name here, Nick Vasiliou. Go find them because you're gonna want to hear more. You're gonna. I know I do.
Hmm.
So, I
I'm
would.
making an effort to post some content too. The last month or so, I've posted a couple things. I provided some updates on the sort of work I'm doing. So, yeah,
Awesome. Well, that's really great, and thanks for being here, Nick,
no problem.
on the talk. And yeah, just to add on to what Nick had just mentioned about taking lessons to hone your skills, lots of places you can still do it, even though we're in this pandemic. I mean, YouTube is such a great resource, but there's a lot of online courses, places like Udemy, and then I mean, even here at Chorus Music, we have online lessons happening as well. So you can get in touch with us at chorusmusic.ca, and we actually have your first free trial half-hour lesson, so you can try it. Aditya's been doing it since
Yeah.
March, and it's been going well. And
Yeah, not
so
bad.
if it's something that you're interested in, give it a try. Give us a call. We're also here in person at the school with following all the social distance requirements, so all that can be accessed at chorusmusic.ca. And Aditya, you gotta keep an eye out for this guy because he's he's an awesome dude. So he has guitar skills going, but he's also improving his launch pad skills, which he did a great job of
Yes.
at the concert we had a few months back. And he's
Got it
doing
really
some
good.
music production. So, Aditya, is there anything you want to end off with?
I think I pretty much sums it up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, stay tuned for more from Nick, more from Aditya, and for next week's edition of Artists Empowering Artists. But for now, it's been a great time hanging out with all of you, and I
Yeah.
hope this has given our viewers some insight and some new information. But until next time, stay safe and practice. See you guys.